Great lock-in of 2025.
Great lock-in of 2025.
Too late, already quit. This is how many people searched for the term diet in the last 5 years. That spike coincides right with January 1st, right when people are making their New Year's resolutions. The trend continues for terms like gyms near me, how to start a business, and more. This represents something we call the fresh start effect. This study, for example, showed that people are more likely to go to the gym on the first day of the week, on the month, of the semester versus the last day. That's the fresh start effect. The great lock-in and a New Year's resolution are pretty much the same thing, just at different points of the year. The New Year's resolution data shows that 45% of people will quit their New Year's resolution in the first month. Because that's self-reported data, it's actually probably way higher than that. It's a good idea, and we're a month in, which means most people have probably failed. If more than half of us have probably already failed our great lock-in, then how? And can we re-lock in? These 5 dots represent dudes who all failed their lock-ins because of a common motivational myth. And in this video, I'm debunking all of them so that we collectively, because I need it too, can re-lock in and hopefully achieve our goals for the last 2 months of the year. Welcome to Wise Down Research Company. Before we start this, I want to have like a human moment. If you tried and failed something, you are better off than had you not tried at all. So like, even if you failed, kudos to you, pat on the back for even trying something. That said, you did still fuck it up. So let's just start this video. The first myth, tell your goal to someone so they hold you accountable. This is generally not true. A study from 2009 showed that making goals public often creates a false sense of progress that compromises effort and performance. But it's pretty weak data. I'll show you. In the study, psychology students who kept their goals private worked on those goals for about 1 extra day per week. That's not a lot, and it also wasn't very significant. They also tested law students and found that students would spend about 5 more minutes working on a case study if they were ignored versus if they were noticed by experimenters. Again, 5 minutes, not really that significant. But there is a pattern. Enter Ohio State University and a thing called evaluation apprehension. Evaluation apprehension is a fancy way of saying, I care what people think about me. God forbid, it is human nature. Ohio State found that telling your goals to people that you look up to, like managers or coaches, activates that evaluation apprehension. You don't want them to think less of you if you fail or don't commit to the goal. So it actually increases goal commitment and performance. A lot of people posted about the great lock-in, right? I'm gonna read every day and drink so much water and run. And that probably felt good in the moment, but it's unlikely that you look up to the entirety of social media. So posting about your intentions probably doesn't do a lot to motivate you. It seems like the rule of thumb is that you wanna tell people above this line right here and kind of keep quiet to people below the line. Myth number 2, you have to want it bad enough. It turns out that wanting it has very little to do with it. Intentions only account for between 18 and 23% of behavior variance. Other things like attitude or perceived behavioral control had more of an impact. It's not nothing, right? Wanting it, or what psychologists might call volition, is important. A really cool study proved this by forcing mice to run. So they took 2 different groups of mice. One group was forced to run on those little like wheel things, and the other could run whenever they wanted. If you put a mouse into a cage with a wheel, it will run on that wheel. The forced exercise became a stressor and led to anxious behavior. Now, both groups did lose weight, right? So you could see that as a benefit, but at what cost? What I'm really getting at is I hear people say like, oh, I didn't want it enough, or I wanted it more. And that doesn't really help anyone.
Like you guys were just talking about, you know, Miami wanted it more or less. Like that is just such horse, you know what, right?
Wanting it or volition is an important part of behavior change, but on its own, it's probably not enough for significant results. If wanting it isn't enough, then what else do you need? Well, something that comes to mind is tracking. I see tracking on a spectrum, right? On one hand, you have tracking by vibes, which is to say, not tracking, like just nothing. And on the other hand, you have like first day of school, social studies class, brand new 64 pack of highlighters, writing in cursive, like too much. Calm down, Rebecca. The general consensus seems to be that physically tracking your progress improves commitment and performance. And this could be for a bunch of reasons. It might be that tracking forces you to face failures that are otherwise easy to overlook, right? This is sometimes called the ostrich problem. You know about the ostrich problem if you've ever had an awesome night of drinking and in the morning refused to check your bank balance for fear of what it will tell you, right? Like, I'm not dealing with that right now. That's the ostrich problem. Other evidence shows that people feel more committed and more certain about decisions that are expressed via action. So physically tracking something is a higher level of commitment than just like deciding to do it in your head. It could be as simple as, well, I track it so I remember it. It's on the top of my head. Reality, it's probably all of those things combined. So tracking is helpful. Asterisk. Hang on now. If tracking is starting to feel like its own task, that does not bode well for your new behavior, okay? I'll tell you, this is the most successful I've ever been at tracking a behavior. This was for the gym. I just tracked workouts, weight, and reps. I literally filled this out at the gym, and I did this for about a year, and it really helped me. On the other hand, this is something I tried after watching one of those like habit tracker YouTube videos. Way more complicated, way more in depth. You'll see I lasted about 10 days, and then I stopped doing that. Tracking is helpful. Keep it simple. Number 4, we're burning through these. Look at this. In 2013, the 76ers, under new general manager Sam Hinkie, started intentionally losing in order to secure better draft picks for the future. They told their fans to trust the process, essentially saying, this is going to suck for a while. It will lead to success in the future. And trust the process became a mantra for Sixers fans. Eventually, it got so popular that it got bigger than basketball. And now, trust the process is pretty common motivational advice. It's synonymous with focus on the work and ignore the outcome. And that advice is not totally wrong. One analysis showed that learning goals, or goals where you focus on improving your skills, led to higher levels of intrinsic motivation than outcome goals, or goals where you focus on the outcome or end result. Learning goals are also better in almost every way than ability goals, where you're trying to prove that you're good at something. That's more of an ego thing. I wouldn't recommend that. This, along with the reality that failing a goal can lower self-esteem, can lower mood, or what we call affect, and can lower motivation, means that it does make sense to completely ignore the finish line or the end result and only focus on the process. But ignoring the end result does come at a price. Another study showed that wherever you focus is where you improve. So monitoring progress or behaviors led participants to do more of those behaviors, which kind of eventually led to progress for the end result, right? That's the idea. But monitoring the end goal, the thing we're being told to ignore, actually showed better results. This is probably because a lot of those like end results are caused by a mix of different behaviors and variables. This is easier to understand with an example. Let's take losing weight. If you wanted to lose weight, you could do a lot of things. You could eat fewer calories. You could drink less soda. You could exercise more. If you only tracked your soda intake, you would probably miss out on the benefits of going to the gym or eating healthier. And even if you did cut out soda, you might overcompensate in other areas and not lose any weight. And then you don't really know why. But if you tracked the weight, like your end goal, you might be more willing or at least aware of all of those variables, and that might make an impact, a bigger impact on the end result. You might lose more weight. So trust the process, absolutely. But ignoring the end goal might mean leaving results on the table. And finally, number 5. I think this one's my favorite. I feel like a lot of motivational advice follows this formula. I do X hard thing because it's hard, and that will make me better at doing other hard things. If you ask Google, it will confirm this advice. It says that doing any hard thing can increase overall resilience, confidence, and adaptability. And my biggest problem with this is that word overall. To get a better understanding, I emailed Dr. Scott Russo. If you take on a difficult task, you, or more specifically your brain, thank you brain, is put under stress. After you survive the stress and then adequately recover, your brain becomes more flexible. It learns to adapt. As a result, you can now tolerate more stress in the future. As long as you continue to expose to stress and then adequately recover, your stress threshold, like the amount of stuff you can handle, actually goes up. It's how we build mental resilience in ourselves over time. But not all hard things are created equal. Cold showers, for example, probably only make you better at taking more cold showers. That's not to say cold showers are useless, right? They still have benefits, but don't expect them to make you better at going to the gym. On the other hand, we have exercise. Dr. Russo talks about how exercise has a widespread impact on organ health and neuroplasticity, and it can significantly enhance our ability to manage stress. And in that way, it can make us better at handling like other stressors or other challenges. In this case, this is the important part. The benefits are not because exercise is difficult. The benefits are from the exercise, right? Does that make sense? My point here is that doing something hard just because it is hard is dumb. Some things like exercise help us manage stress and regulate our emotions, which helps us build resilience and take on more challenges. That's great. That's from exercise. But taking a cold shower every day just because you think it'll like toughen you up is a great way to overload your schedule with nonsense and then fail the great lock-in because you have so much on your plate. So how do we re-lock in? Well, we're going to get really selective when we talk about our goals. And if we post, we're posting for progress, not intentions. We're going to keep wanting it, sure, but we're going to remember that there's more to the equation than that. We're also going to track our progress in a way that is easy and manageable for us. It's not its own task anymore. Also, we're not going to fully trust the process, right? The process now owes us money. And we just saw on the process's Instagram page that they're buying drinks at the bar. Like, you can afford those drinks, but you can't afford to pay me back. What the hell, man? We're not cutting the process out of our lives, but we're going to talk to the outcomes and end results a little bit more after that. And finally, we are going to stop setting difficult goals just because they're difficult. Instead, we're going to start setting goals because they benefit us. If this was helpful at all, then the best way to support us is to subscribe. If you already subscribed, thank you so much for supporting us. You're the best. And yeah, see you on the next one. Outro!